Our next guest is one of the most successful pro wrestlers to make a crossover to MMA, taking on Dan Charles at Bellator 138. He is a former Shark Fights and XFN heavyweight champion. It's our pleasure to welcome Bobby Lashley to Submission Radio. Welcome to the show, Bobby.
Hey, thank you, man.
We really appreciate you being on the show, Bobby. Now, before we get into your new opponent, obviously James Thompson is out, Dan Charles is in. Just want to talk a little bit about your past. Fans may not know that you had an Olympic aspiration in 2003. However, you couldn't go through with competing because you suffered a knee injury while doing business at a bank where robbery broke out. Tell us, is this true? And could you please tell us a little bit about what happened?
It is, man. It was a crazy story. It was a crazy little time. I mean, I was actually just going into the bank to deposit some money, and these guys came in, kicked the door down, and they actually shot at me. My back was turned, but I just saw everybody from the front kind of ducking down and screaming and diving. So I took a dive, landed on the floor, and it busted my knee open. And at that point, I had to have 2 surgeries after it, and that essentially just ended my amateur wrestling career.
Wow, and I mean, it's all worked out for the best, so things happen for a reason, but that's just a crazy story. Just wondering, soon afterwards when you went into pro wrestling, obviously you had a passion for MMA. Did you ever consider going into MMA instead of pro wrestling straight away from the get-go?
Well, yeah, I mean, just being a wrestler, a lot of the guys that I trained with from the beginning went straight into it, so I had a lot of friends that were doing it, but, at the time, I mean, I got offered a pro wrestling contract, right after my surgery. So I was basically sitting there with a leg brace on, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do any kind of combat sports at the time. So the only thing I was really looking forward to was really getting myself healthy and going into pro wrestling. But yeah, when I first started, there was a lot of guys that I'm good friends with that moved up the rankings really quick, and I trained with, and now I get an opportunity to get back and train with them now. So you never know what's going to happen, but I like the way things happen for me. I'm happy that I went to pro wrestling first, and I enjoy it, and I still do it now, but I still kind of want to fight. So I'm trying to do as much as I can while I have the time.
Yeah, for sure. And, with a lot of the guys in the WWE and I think pro wrestling in general, there's a lot of MMA fans. I mean, obviously CM Punk, Shane McMahon, guys like The Undertaker. How do you feel knowing that there's a lot of guys that like MMA but didn't actually go all out and do MMA, whereas you're one of the few guys that have made the transition and made a successful transition and really, went out and followed your dream?
Well, it's one of those things where you can't do half-assed. Either you got to jump in full board, or you got to stay out. So I know some of the guys that are big fans, they do some jiu-jitsu, they may get some mitts and stuff like that, but they know what kind of dedication needs. And some of the guys are still kind of questioning it right now. So I think we might have a few other guys jump across the board and try a fight or two. I'm happy for Punk, and I'm happy for anybody else who wants to do it. You only live once, and you only have a short window to do what you want to do. So if they want to do it, they're going to do it quick.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's talk about your training, because you are currently wrestling for TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. You have quite a big part there. How difficult is it for you to juggle training MMA, getting ready for your fight, while also being pretty much one of the biggest stars in TNA? This has been probably the easiest ride for me for a couple different things. Working with Dixie Carter and the crew over there at TNA, they're super supportive for my fights. And when we came into it, we talked about it. I didn't sign either one of the contracts without talking to both parties, and they were both on board with saying, we want you to wrestle and we want you to fight. So Bellator wanted me to still pro wrestle. They said, hey, if your schedule is conducive of you training and being able to do both, of course we'd love for you to do it. I mean, why not? And then with the wrestling, they're like, yeah, you can bring some legitimacy over to wrestling, because you can tell all the fans, the MMA fans, and everybody that we're not just. Some people just think that these guys just can and hit the gym and lift weights. We had some legitimate athletes. We had Kurt Angle, Olympic champion, Shelton Benjamin. He was a highly decorated. Him, Charlie Haas. There was so many athletes that they had in pro wrestling. So it's been really good, man. My schedule with TNA is super light. We do about 5-6 shows in a row every month and a half. So I'm home most of the time, so I'm able to train full time. And then when I fight, I make sure I take my fights either before one of the big stretch of shows or well afterwards. So they're working with me great. I think both of them want to see me succeed. So this has been really, really good, and I'm happy that I'm with the two right now, because I don't think anybody else would have given me the opportunity to be able to do both. Oh, no, absolutely. And you mentioned a few names there like Shelton Benjamin and Kurt Angle. Just wondering, when it comes to Kurt, have you had a bit of a wrestle with him? Has he sort of shown you a few tips and tricks? And have you had a chance to train with him? Because we know that he wanted to go into MMA at one point but couldn't pass a physical, but obviously a wealth of knowledge when it comes to grappling.
Yeah. Kurt's just got it to his own. I always talk with Kurt, but Kurt's so focused right now. He has a lot on his plate, with his family. He's been doing some acting stuff, and then he's holding the title over at TNA. So he's super busy. So the times when me and Kurt talk, it's mainly about family life and what's going on with the show and everything like that. I wish he would have had an opportunity to come over, but I don't think his body would have been able to handle the type of training or anything. But if in his younger days, I think Kurt would have been a beast, and he would have been a true force to reckon with. But right now, we talk. We just go. It's not more of any technique or anything like that. It's just, hey, Kurt, what's going on? How's your family? And then we talk about wrestling.
Now, Bobby, you've had an opponent change. James Thompson has been injured and has been pulled from the bout. This is the second time the fight's been cancelled in 4 months, with you previously getting injured and unable to fight him at Bellator 134. What were your thoughts when you found out that this fight wasn't happening again?
I knew it. I was talking to somebody beforehand. I was like, man, as much as I want to fight him, first of all, I was surprised that he took the fight in the first place. The first time, I don't think the fight was really scheduled. It was just one of those things where they wanted it to happen. I wasn't ready for it. I had injured my hand earlier in the year, so the fight wasn't really been scheduled. So when the fight didn't come to fruition at the end, it was kind of one of those things where I had to take the heat for it, which I don't mind doing. This time, on the other hand, he signed the contract. I signed the contract. Everything was ready to go. But I was super surprised that he took it in the first place, because we fought before, and the first time, I felt I beat him up pretty bad, and I was like, I can't believe he wants to take that, excuse my language, ass whooping again. And then I was like, when's the time? I was just waiting for the time for him to drop out, and sure enough, he dropped out. So I was training for him, and then with the opponent change, it kind of sucks a little bit, because when you go into camp, for me, I don't super study my opponent, but I knew it was going to be James Thompson, so I knew what to expect with it. I knew he was going to come in here real heavy. He's going to charge. He's going to try to hold. He's going to try to weigh on me and everything like that. So we based our camp completely around him. So now with the new guy coming in, the guy's good. He's got a 9-2 record, and but he's going to be a little lighter. He's going to be a little quicker. He's going to be a different fighter. It's a different opponent. So a lot of times you come in and say, look, the guy took it at the last minute, but I took it at the last minute also, because it's a completely different opponent than we trained for the past 5-6 weeks. So I don't mind it. I'm ready, and I told them that I'm ready. So when they changed the opponent, I was like, put somebody else in there and let's go. Because going into training camp, you put a lot into training camp. The last thing that I want to do is back out of a fight now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And obviously, James had previously beaten you once. I'm just wondering, is this a case where James Thompson is someone that you want to fight to avenge that loss? Or are you sort of giving up on this rematch because it hasn't happened so many times? If you win this fight, will you just sort of move on to the next opponent?
I want to, but it has to happen. Bellator wants it to happen, and I know that a lot of fans are kind of excited about it happening. It's got to happen. And I know he's not hurt. I don't know what his case is. I don't know what the situation is, but I know he can go out there and he can take the fight. So hopefully after this fight, I'm going to try to call him out right away. If this fight goes away, I plan for it to go. I'm going to call him out right away and say, hey, no disrespect, but I want you to get your ass out here and fight. We got to have that fight, because there's a lot of speculations. A lot of people watch the fight, and it's torn. Most of the people say I won, but at the end of the fight, they raise his hand. So let's fix that. Let's see who really won. Let's go out there and fight. Hopefully we can fight in July. I know they got fight cards coming up every month with Bellator, and I'm going to stay in camp just in case the opportunity comes up. People get hurt all the time, so I'm going to stay ready. So hopefully he can get back. Maybe he can take some rehab time and be ready for July. If he does, then that's what we're going to fight.
Sure. Now, so his replacement is obviously Dan Charles, a man who's a 3-sport athlete in high school with wrestling, football, baseball, and who's won his last 2 fights in Bellator. When it comes to Dan, most of his wins are by KO, TKO. Does it worry you at all going into a fight? You said obviously you trained for a completely different fighter. Is that a concern for you at all?
Yeah, well, everything's kind of a concern. Not I'm not really worried about it to the point where, I'm worried about the guy. Everything's going to be concerned because it's a fight. And when you're heavyweight, 200-plus pounds, swinging heavy leather, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be cautious out there, of course, but I just had such a good I felt a long time. So I don't think he's going to be ready for the kind of pressure that's winning this fight.
No, absolutely. Now, Dan's a young and up-and-coming guy. In this sort of scenario, there's no pressure going into the fight for him because people don't really expect him to win. It's a scenario where Dan has more to gain and less to lose. Do you feel any more pressure on your performance at Bellator 138 now as opposed to your fight with James? Because everybody's sort of expecting you to really go through this guy.
No, because that's every one of my fights. Every one of my fights going there. Even if they're a bigger name than me, they have most of the guys that I fight have more to gain. So it is kind of one of those deals where when they come out and fight me, they're like, yeah, and I really doesn't matter if the guys are higher ranked than me, if they have a better record. It doesn't matter. It seems like every time I'm put in the same position where they have more to gain and I have a lot to lose. So it doesn't really matter. I don't even look at it that way anymore. I kind of erase that out of my mind and just think, hey, it's a fight. And this is a fighter, and it's a heavyweight fighter, so anything can happen. So I just got to train hard and go out there and stick to the game plan.
Sure. So you're obviously fighting Dan Charles Bellator 138. Bellator 138 is a pretty impressive card. You got Ken Shamrock taking on Kimbo Slice as the main event. Another former, wrestler / MMA fighter. Were you surprised when you heard about this matchup? And what are your thoughts on Kimbo being in Bellator?
I like it, man. I like those guys. I like Kimbo a lot. I mean, I'm good friends with him, so. And he's an ATT guy, so when I found out he was on the card, I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." But then, it's one of those fights that at first, when people hear about it, they're like, "What? Kimbo's fighting Shamrock? Shamrock fighting?" And then afterwards, you say, "Okay, who's going to win?" And then you get this whole discussion. Okay, well, if Kimbo hits him, well, Shamrock takes him down, and then you have this huge discussion as to what's going to happen. So it's a very interesting fight. I think that. It's one of those interesting fights, and I think a lot of people are going to watch it just because they're going to have the respect for Ken just being in the business so long, and then to see what Kimbo can do, because he took that little time away and did his boxing and some of the other things that he was doing. So they want to see what's going to happen. Nobody knows. I think it's going to be very interesting. I think a lot of people are going to tune in just to see the craziness.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you something, because we were watching a video where Kimbo was talking about how he's been doing a lot of MMA training, I think, over the last few years, even though he hasn't been competing at it. And you said, obviously, he is an ATT guy, you train ATT. Is there something we don't know about Kimbo? Is he coming in with like a completely new arsenal that we don't know about because he's been training for the last few years?
I would say, I haven't seen him train lately because I own ATT up in Denver, so I did most of my training camp up in Denver. I know he popped into Coconut Creek quite a bit, so I don't know what they've been working on. I know he's been working on a lot of what Ken does, especially like knee bars and heel hooks and a lot of leg defense. So I know if he goes down on the ground, they can probably work on the tennis stuff there. But outside of that, I think he should just swing away. So I think that Kimbo is still going to be the Kimbo that everybody loves and knows. Someone that's going to throw some heavy punches and try to catch him on his chin.
No, absolutely. Now, we have to ask you this question, Bobby, because a lot of fans are wondering this. Obviously, you and Kimbo are at the same training camp, but we have Dan Lambert on the show, and, he spoke about teammates fighting each other. It would be a huge fight that fans would want to see. Do you see yourself at any point in your Bellator career possibly matching up with Kimbo? Because obviously you guys are friends, but at the same time, it would be a very, very interesting matchup that would get a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, business is business, and he understands it. He gets it also. And how I look at it, I mean, some people would never do it. For me, I'm a little different. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all here out to try to feed our families. And if that's a good fight and that's the fight that they want, I'm up for it. It's going to be one of those fights that I'm going to shake his hand before and I'll shake his hand afterwards. But I really don't see it happening until I tell you the truth. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen next. It depends on, I guess there's a lot of different factors. But you never know. Never know. I'm willing. I'll pretty much do anything that they need me to do right now. So.
You're the kind of employee that every boss dreams of, Bobby. Easygoing. You fought twice in 2014. Now, this will be your first fight for 2015. Just wondering, what are your goals in MMA? You're 38 years old. Do you want to take on the Bellator heavyweight champ soon? Or, are you sort of looking to do MMA and pro wrestling sort of together and this being more sort of part-time?
No, I'm gonna still do it together, but I'm still shooting for that title. Right now, I think I'm in a really good position to do it, and I think within the next few fights, I think we should be knocking on the door of whoever has it, saying, "Hey, it's time for that shot." I think every fight that I have moving forward is going to be a telltale sign as whether or not they're going to give me that shot. I think, Thompson, of course, he has a little winning streak going, so I think it would have been a better fight for me to just smash him. To look, but then, like you said, Dan Charles up and coming. They know the kid's tough, got a good record. I mean, every fight that I have leading up, this year is super important. I'm not going to be a journeyman fighter. I can see me well into 40s, trying to pick fights with guys and everything like that. I'm not doing it. I'm doing a hard run right now, going for the title, and hopefully I can get the title out of all this.
Absolutely. Now, we really appreciate the time, Bobby. We've got a couple of fan questions before we wrap up, so we picked a couple and we'll quickly ask them. The first one comes from username Real Deal O'Neill. He goes, Bobby, I'm a big fan of you both in MMA and pro wrestling. Just wondering, what are your thoughts on WWE next? There's a lot of great guys having a run there, such as Samoa Joe and Kevin Steen.
I like it. I like what they're doing down there. I really like what they're doing. I think that show is almost becoming more popular than the main show, which if that happens, no, I was saying that I think it's great. I think what they're doing down there is great. They're building some guys up so that those guys can learn how to be superstars and do some big things. And when they do come up to the main roster, they're ready because they do get a little bit of superstar status when they're there. So they have a TV channel, everything like that. The only thing that I wish that they would do is that there's a lot of guys out right now that they really can use to kind of like mix into their program that I think would give those guys even bigger boosts. You have guys like Sheldon Benjamin, you have Chris Masters, Carlito, you have John Morrison, you have a lot of really, really good guys out there that they're like, no, we're not going to touch those guys because we really want to develop these younger guys. I understand that. But I think Helm said it best. It's like, you can't go to a professional game and not have some of the professionals out there. And I think what they have going on right now, they have some really good names. I think they should just kind of mix it up a little bit more. And then another thing is I think they should just use some of the guys that are out there right now. Instead of these guys traveling around the world in independent promotions all over the place, you've already built these guys up. Might as well use them to boost your guys and then give them kind of a little retirement out of the deal. So
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's pretty much the reason why people love NXT. This question comes from Walls of Dan. Bobby, what are your thoughts on the rumors that TNA will be canceled from Destination America? Have you heard anything else about this?
Man, in my contract it says nothing about negotiating deals with any network, so I try to stay out of that part of it. I know what Dixie does, and Dixie's good at kind of trying to find the right path for where she needs to have this show. I mean, they've been around for 12 years. I don't think they're going to go anywhere right now. Whether it's Destination America, Spike, or wherever it is, I'm sure they're going to be able to reach an agreement, reach a deal where they're going to have a home and they're going to be there for a long time. If they leave Destination America, I think it'll be a shame because the amount of talent that we have on that show. I mean, it's for the people that watch TNA, they know the kind of talent. I mean, there's some really big names here. You got the Hardy Boys, you got Kurt Angle, myself, MVP. There's a lot of really high, Bobby Roode, Eric Young. There's a lot of really, really good Kennedy over there. I mean, there's so many guys over there that it'd be. If they do die, there's going to be another promotion somewhere that's just ready to scoop up all these guys and already have a main level roster right after that. So I don't see it happening. It'd be ridiculous for them to part ways. If anybody leaves, it's going to be TNA leaving to go somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely, and a great product like you mentioned. Now, we're going to wrap up the interview with a thing we call the tap-out round, Bobby. It's basically like word association. We throw questions at you. You answer with the first thing that comes to mind, okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, who's your favorite MMA fighter to watch?
Damn, tough question off the bat. Let's go with... I'm going to throw two. I get two, right?
Yeah.
I think Luke Rockhold is really doing some big things, and And doggone it, I'm gonna throw a handful. I really like Conor McGregor, but I like Jose Aldo as a fighter. But I think that's gonna be an amazing fight. I think Ronda Rousey's at the top of the friggin' business, as is. And then Verdun McCain, that's gonna be another incredible fight. So I mean, I have so many. There's 7 names for you.
Yeah, clearly obviously an MMA fan. Vince versus Dixie, what's the biggest difference between working with them?
I think Dixie's more of let's see. I think Vince is more of a businessman, and Dixie's more of like a family person. Dixie kind of stays away from the business aspect and lets the people run the company, but at the same time, Dixie's so big on the family. Man, I have no problem bringing my kids there, bringing them backstage, meeting the guys and everything like that. He wants to be more of a family environment. Whereas Vince, it's business. It's really business in WWE. I mean, both of them have their great qualities, but I think that's the big difference between the two.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of WWE, would you ever consider going back for one last run when it's all said and done?
Sure.
Now, describe working with Donald Trump in one sentence, Bobby.
Amazing.
What's Bobby Lashley's favorite go-to submission when he's rolling around?
I can't say that, man, because in this guy's got to work some defense on it. I like, let me think of something. Let's do something now. I'm going to go with the knee bar.
There you go. That's some high-level stuff. What's one pro wrestling move? One of the last questions, Bobby. What's one pro wrestling move that you think would work well in an MMA fight?
The power bomb.
Well, Rampage Jackson did it, so you're not wrong.
Now, working a match with Vince McMahon, how difficult was it? Because we hear it was very hard.
No, I think it's very easy because he gets it more than other people. I mean, because a lot of times you deal with him, you don't go after him first, he goes after you. So he's going to show you what kind of pace that he wants. He's going to show you how stiff it's going to be and how hard it's going to be. So after that, you just got to reciprocate. Mm-hmm. You got to give it back the same way he gives it to you. So I think it's very simple. It's very simple working with him. And he told me, too, it's like, you know what, you're going to have your time. And I was like, okay, well, my time comes. My time's going to come.
Well, it sounds like your time is now. Finally, the last question, Bobby. What is the official prediction? How do you plan on beating Dan Charles at Bellator 138?
I think it'd be second round ground and pound.
There you go, guys. Well, you can follow Bobby on Twitter at FightBobby and check out his fight with Dan Charles at Bellator 138, June 19th. Of course, here in Australia, it's going to be June 20th because of the time difference. Bobby, we want to thank you so much for taking the time and doing the show. We really appreciate it. Good luck in the fight.
Anytime, every time, man. Appreciate you.